We are joined now by two exceptional individuals. She's the representative for California's 37th District, as well as the chairwoman for the Congressional Black Caucus, Ms. Karen Bass. He's an activist, a strategist, and the founder of the Dream Defenders, Mr. Philip Agnew. We are talking about saying her name, but we're also talking about invoking the love, the respect, and the protection of Black women. So thank you both for joining in this important conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Congresswoman, I'm going to start with you, frankly, because today is a very big, important day, and I know that you have been on the front line of leadership, particularly as it relates to police reform in this moment, specifically the Justice Act that is going forward today. So tell us a bit about what this legislation is in the House. So tell us about it and how it impacts Black women.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we named it the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act after a request by his daughter. His daughter was afraid that her father would be forgotten, so we named the bill after him. And I'll divide it into three different categories. The bill addresses accountability in police, which means that right now it's difficult to fire, to sue, or to prosecute a police officer. So we make the changes so that can happen. In addition, we ban chokeholds, we ban no-knock warrants, which is exactly why Breonna Taylor was killed. We call for a registry of bad police officers. You know what? Today would have been Tamir Rice's 18th birthday. And Tamir was killed when he was 12 years old because of a police officer who was fired from another department, who was then rehired because the department didn't know it. In addition, we call for uplifting the profession. I mean, if you think about it, to get your hair done, the person that does your hair has to have an accreditation, but a police officer doesn't. Most important to this bill are grants that are provided to communities to re-envision policing, because all of us recognize that over the last, I would say, 35 years, we have divested from cities, divested from communities, and invested in incarceration and law enforcement, and it's time that we rectify that. So that's a snapshot.
The comprehensive nature of what you just described is extremely exciting to me personally, and certainly to the culture. Brother Agnew, so the work that you are doing with Dream Defenders is remarkable. Can you tell us specific, and I know that you are publicly on record as saying that you do believe that our Black men need to do more to show up and protect our sisters. But tell me about the Black women in your program and where you see their leadership going moving forward.
First off, thank you for having me. I know it's a trying time, and it's a time that's been very, very hard for me, but these conversations really do lift my spirits, so I appreciate it. So I left the Dream Defenders at the end of 2018, actually, and who is actively leading the organization are two women named Jonelle Edwards and Rachel Gilmer as co-directors. So when speaking to the placement, the positionality, the power of women within the Dream Defenders, it is represented at every single level, and they have guided the organization to higher heights, wider widths, deeper depths than I could have ever done.
Indeed. Congresswoman Bass, going back to you really quickly, while it is a beautiful and very important and really personally touching fact that the bill is now the George Floyd Justice Act in that way, at the request of his lovely young daughter, there are people that feel, why are bills not being named after Breonna Taylor and the other, so many women, whether it's Sandra Bland and the names go on. Can you speak to that, and maybe you have ideas as to why that's the case, or there's a plan to equalize the visibility of Black women in this movement?
Well, let me just tell you, I say that all the time. I say that especially when it comes to criminal justice reform. I have to do a lot of education of my colleagues to let them know that women have the talk as well. I most certainly had that talk with my daughter, and most certainly went through police harassment on every level as well. The reason I did the shackling bill is because a lot of times when you want to do legislation, you kind of want to do something that shows an extreme example. And that's a barbaric practice of torture. Be clear. That's what
you can see it. It's very visual.
Yes, it is. But it allowed me to raise the issue of women in the criminal justice system.
Where are our male colleagues, your male colleagues rather, on this issue, specifically as it relates to this work you're speaking about on Black women and women in the criminal justice system? How are they showing up as, it's such an overused word now, allies, but co-conspirators of this work?
Well, Well,
Tell the truth now, Congresswoman.
Yep.
I'll tell you the truth. It's much better now. We definitely had to do some education work because some of my male colleagues, as a matter of fact, when First Step was going through, we really had to push our way in. And I am fortunate, just by coincidence, I chair the committee that deals with the legislation. So since I chair the committee, I didn't during First Step, I do now. But when I will tell you, when we did the hearing on women in the criminal justice system, my brothers were surprised. They weren't aware.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
Education, but you should know that they are 150% on board now. We're a tad embarrassed.
Philip, I want to ask you, how are Black women showing up in your life personally? How have they been a part of your leadership development? Because, you know, you sit atop some pretty, what I like to say, some rare air spaces. But, you know, you're in the Ivy Leagues and all these great platforms. How have Black women been a part of your journey?
My existence, my presence is singularly the creation of Black women. There have been a great many. I'm a part of a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha.
And Ski Phi to you, bro.
Oh, come on, here we go. But my father was in my life. My father is in my life, was in the home. But Black women, more than any other group of people, are singularly responsible for challenging me at times where I was unchallenged or felt unchallenged, of lifting me up at times when I decided to tear myself down because I'm a Cancer. I tend to do that sometimes, get in my head. And even in this period of life that I'm in right now, I could get emotional about it. It has been Black women who have been lifting me and pushing me through, calling me, letting me know that I am loved, that I am trusted, and that they need me in this fight. And so for me, I take my time in this movement as an affirmation of their commitment and seeing me over and over again.
It's beautiful. I could tell you in the first fan, brother. I knew it was something special about you. Final question for Congresswoman Bass. You know, I got to ask you, sis. You are very much in the conversation of potentially being our next vice president of these United States. As well you should be. So let me ask you, whether it is yourself or another Black woman, how important is it to America's future that we have a Black woman in that vice presidency?
I think it's critical, especially at this moment, at this particular moment in our history, to make sure that the ticket is diverse. All that we're going through in this country, and I'm just so encouraged by it. I mean, all the years I've worked on these issues, to have them finally come to the fore with a rainbow coalition that's out there that's not just talking about policing, but it's talking about systemic racism. That is a word, a concept we couldn't even talk about before. People wanted to reduce racism to, well, you know, everybody's racist. And, you know, I mean, we just all have to love each other. Crap. This is about institutional racism that is as American as the American flag. And so we have to have that discussion. So at a moment, when you're talking about systemic racism, of course, this is the moment to make sure that the ticket has diversity at the top.
Congresswoman Bass, Philip, I want to thank you both for this very personal and heartfelt conversation, and also very productive conversation. We'll be back with more Revolt Black News in a minute.